I'm going to stop you guys a little bit early because you went over on your presentation. So we're going to go ahead and switch over to the next group. But thank you guys so much.
Alright, so my name is Amadeo, and this is Victor, Giannis, and Josue, and today we're going to be talking to you guys about how to save your wallet from money-hungry universities. So, by show of hands, how many of you have purchased textbooks or reading materials that you never used and wasted lots of money on? So, I know we all are in the same boat here because we've all been going to college, and that is just the reality that you're going to have to face. So, according to Best Colleges, students spend on average $340 per year on reading materials or textbooks. And I know, me personally, as a freshman last semester, I bought 7 reading materials for like around $400. And out of all those, I only used 2, and that was a brief use. And this semester, I learned my lesson, and a trick that I used is I waited 2 weeks before actually purchasing any. And the only one I purchased was COM 107, because that's extremely important.
That's going to be a theme later on in this presentation.
So, in a survey conducted by instructors of 500 psychology students, 35% reported using the teacher-provided online lecture notes, while only 30% read the textbook weekly. So if the lecture notes are more effective and more students are reading those, there's no reason to have textbooks purchased outside of class when everything can just be from lectures. And so this kind of raises the issue of textbooks and how they're overpriced, inaccessible, they cause confusion, and they cause stress among students. And I know I personally was pretty anxious my first semester trying to figure out which ones to buy, and then I went to the bookstore and I had an issue where like they didn't have a book, so then I had to get it somewhere else, and it caused like a week's headache. And so if textbooks were eliminated, my stress would be eliminated. And now I'm going to pass it over to Victor, who's going to speak on the cost of textbooks.
Thank you, Amadeo. So, going over the cost of college textbooks, an individual textbook can cost well over $100 and sometimes over $200 per book. I personally purchased a book for $50, and my highest textbook I ever purchased was around $250. So these prices are absolutely absurd. And going over a graph from the education data shows the average cost of annual cost of college textbooks and supplies. So you can see from this graph, it goes from 2010 to all the way to 2021. And an average full-time undergraduate student could spend around $1,226,000 on textbooks and supplies. These numbers are absolutely absurd, and there's no reason that we should be spending all this money on textbooks that we barely use, like Amadeo said. So basically, now I'm going to talk about why these college textbooks are so expensive. So according to DACO, there are 3 main factors when it comes to the cost of college textbooks. So number 1 is that college textbooks are highly specialized material. What this means is that the college textbooks are specifically designed for one course. So, and then you won't be able to find another textbook for that specific course. And so these publishers, since there's no other books for that one course, they can choose their own prices. And they would raise up the prices to make a profit. And number 2 is that the content inside college textbooks are always changing. Unlike books and novels, the content inside of the textbooks have to change with relevant information from the present. So they have to keep making new editions, which waste more material, and then will also raise the prices for the more relevant information. And number 3 is a uncompetitive market. So basically, according to the Huffington Post, just 5% of publishers control 80% of the textbook market. These publishers can make their own prices, and they would jack up the prices so they can make a big profit. And now I'm going to hand it off to Giannis to talk about the effectiveness of textbooks.
Thanks, Victor. I think any time with a change in something's value, like with textbooks in this case, whenever in the economy something changes its value, there's some kind of pressure driving that force. So I would like to identify what it is that we don't like about textbooks that is actually causing their value to change, but right now their actual price in the market to remain the same. The impact of textbooks can be separated into two different categories: physical and electronic textbooks. The first category is one that has many effects, and obviously they originate from somewhere because they have a material form, so they come from actually trees. And granted, not every physical textbook is going to come from a tree that's over 10,000 years old, as in this picture here. So a lot of times we don't care about the tree as much, but we still want to appreciate that it definitely comes from somewhere, and we don't want to be lugging it around everywhere, as this child is doing in the picture to the right. And I think that these effects are really pronounced when it comes to physical textbooks, because we all take them from class to class, and we all really recognize, especially the consequence on the right, because we have different activities we like to do other than carrying 5-pound textbooks in our backpacks. Like this child is probably in music studies and she has a violin in the backpack, and other things and pencils, wooden pencils too, so that adds to the weight. So we like to do things other than using textbooks is the main argument. And if it's electronic, which is the second type of textbook, it's not to say that electronic textbooks are better because they don't have a physical form. They also have consequences. When you read a textbook right before going to bed, that disrupts your sleep schedule because you're looking at blue light, and that disrupts your circadian rhythm. The first one was from USA Today 2022, the second one from New York Times 2012, and then the electronic one was from BBC 2014. Either way, increased stress occurs because of these textbooks. Textbooks can negatively impact students' mental health as a result of increased stress tendencies. And the results of a study by Vujicic 2018 indicated that inauthentic language and even activities, readings, and visuals that, quote, may be boring were included in the textbooks. Students know this is a safe statement. The effects are not constrained to only the ones I've talked about, however. Many textbooks, especially at the higher levels, are known to ramble on with flowery language. This can confuse a child sometimes, in that they're thrown off the drop tower before they can learn to ride the Ferris wheel, if you will. In the picture on the right, these two people are saying the exact same thing, except one is using more words and the other is using less, but much more confusing words. The point I'm trying to drive home is that textbooks a lot of times would be able to say things in a more understandable way that engages their audience, being us as students. And yet they decide to use words like this man is doing on the left at his podium. And then she responds by saying, did you mean to say that the unnecessary use of flowery language is likely to confuse the listener, as it probably is doing in his speech? Thankfully, this is getting better all across schools in America, and probably at a higher rate than average here in the Maryland area. Elementary schools are starting to reduce handouts, increasing conceptual learning instead. I know we all remember in elementary school when we got a bunch of mad minutes for math and we put them in our backpack and probably just recycled them at the end of the day, and then came back and more. It was a perpetuating cycle. So that it's good that we do things like videos, Kahoot, and independent research now. A teacher tells you to research your own topic. That's actually a very open-ended way to learn. And bring it back to our own textbook in this class. Textbooks are actually all the way at the bottom of this list as a printed document in terms of richness of the medium. And these other types of mediums that I've listed are much higher on this list. And so that's where we definitely want to end up as a school system. We want to ditch these textbooks eventually if we can. And now I'm going to hand it off to Josue, and he's going to talk about the first So, well, he's gonna give us an overview first about our solutions that we have in Zoom.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, so as you mentioned, I'll be talking about the solutions, that being the Affordable Textbook Act, the open source textbooks, and online textbooks. So for the first solution, the Affordable Textbook Act, this bill was basically introduced in the House like a few months ago, and it aims to reduce the financial burden of textbooks by introducing a grant that will provide eligible students with more funds to purchase the textbooks they need. You can kind of think of it like a Pell Grant, you give eligible students based off the financial status and other factors, and they give them more money, free money for textbooks. This also comes with the added benefit of improving price information, and this basically means that this bill will force textbook companies and publishers to update their pricing information to make it more accessible and easier to understand. So if you want to support this bill, you can and live near the area, you can contact this man over here, Glenn Ivy, at ivy.house.gov, and that'll bring you to his website, and it'll show you his contact information, like his phone number and email, and you can basically talk to him about this bill to convince him to support it. And if you don't live near a campus or the area, you can go to house.gov, and it'll bring up a website where if you look at the top right-hand corner, you can see the area right there listed, and you can put in your zip code to find your local representative. There, it will bring you to a website where it will show you their contact information, and you can just talk to them there. My second solution is open source textbooks. These are textbooks made collaboratively by experts in the field, so you know they're trusted and credible. They're also free for anyone to use, and this basically means that you can download, copy, print, however you see fit, and you won't get in trouble for it. And another benefit is that they're hosted online, so they're more accessible. And as Giannis mentioned, since they're hosted online, you don't want to feel the weight of that textbook. So it makes them a lot easier and better to carry around. One of the biggest benefits is that they're out there all the time as well. This basically means that you don't have to worry about these textbooks being outdated or having irrelevant information that may confuse you. And this is a big benefit because it doesn't have to have multiple editions of the textbooks. So it's a lot just there and easy for you to use. Here's some examples I personally used here at UMB, one for history and another one for psych. You can see here that the history textbook has been updated for this current year. And it's kind of structured similarly to a normal textbook in that you have a table of context. And you can just click on whatever source you have and you just go to the website. So how much are you potentially saving using open source textbooks? Well, research done by the Kaleidoscope Open Course Initiative, a project created to eliminate textbooks costs, have found that over 3,000 enrollments using their open source textbooks, they found that the students have potentially saved over $200,000. This basically supports Victor's claim that textbooks cost over hundreds of dollars, and these students have saved a ton of money by using open source textbooks. The third solution is online textbooks. These are sort of similar to open source textbooks in that they are hosted online and that they are more accessible. However, they are also like traditional textbooks in that they have to be paid for, the benefit being that they also cost less. So how much are you saving using these? Well, statements made by multiple presidents at Damon College have said that the typical cost of textbooks can basically be cut in half with e-textbooks. And a statement made by Darling Water supports this statement. A doctor of candidate at Texas University has said that these e-textbooks usually cost a fraction of the printed cost of textbooks. And basically this is because e-textbooks don't have hidden costs like printing or shipping, publishing. These are a non-factor in e-textbooks. So they basically reduce it to make it more accessible and better. So now I'll pass it off to Amadeo to give the closing statements.
Thank you, Josue. So some closing points. Textbooks are outdated, the style of textbooks are not effective, prices are way too high, and there's so much confusion, and if it was all digitalized, like most things these days, it'd be a lot simpler. So what can you do? You can contact Daryl Pines, you can contact your local representative, or you can draft a piece of legislature yourself, like someone in our class did, and spread the word. So our closing argument is that textbooks should be made cheaper and more accessible to relieve stress and create a better system for college. Thank you. These are our work Any questions? Yes.
What kind of hybrid solution could there be from what you guys have found out so far between completely open source and just normal online textbooks? Because obviously there's a discrepancy in the money there. Like, it takes a lot of time and effort to write these textbooks, and not getting paid for it because it's open source, that seems like they wouldn't be very incentivized. But is there any sort of middle ground type thing that could go on?
I think that's probably going to be most noticeable in these free PDFs that people go and download that are probably getting pirated. And it's unfortunate, but I think we still see a good amount of quality sources that are being produced, even though they may not be monetized the same way a textbook is here. And we're still going to need a certain amount of textbooks, especially in courses that are highly specialized material. But the grade levels that this would be most effective is probably starting at the elementary level, I would say.
Yeah, and kind of going off of that, I think the most effective way for textbooks to move into the future is to be digitalized, because if something's digitalized, there's usually going to be free ways of getting it, and especially with lots of people that don't have enough money. If you have a scholarship here but you don't have enough money to buy textbooks, then you're left in trouble spending hundreds of dollars every year. But if there's a way to get it free, I think that'd be more effective. And I honestly think if textbooks were free and they weren't getting money, I think the quality would still be there. And the reason for these textbooks being written would be more effective. It would be more to teach students than to make money. And so I think that would be a better solution.
So I think kind of like what his question, part of it was, is it might be good, still information for the students, but say if you're the people writing the textbooks that are as right now making money from it, if you're taking away their source of income by making the textbooks free, then how did they get paid for writing this information that's free to the students? Would that maybe come in the form of the schools paying the textbook companies, the open source textbook companies, to make them accessible for the students? And if it was coming from the school, then where would that funding come from? Because it's the textbook writers, it's yeah, there's open source stuff now, but it's all these textbooks that are now bought, the textbook companies themselves and the writers of those textbooks then aren't getting paid if the textbooks are all free to everybody. So how would they get compensated for writing that material that's now free?
So I don't know what everyone's tuition plan is, but I know I'm personally paying tens of thousands of dollars, and out of that tens of thousands of dollars, I'm not sure where all of it is going. And if we're only talking about $400 per year, why isn't that included in that tuition? Why is that extra? That should be included. You should get something for every class, and the school definitely has money. We see them throwing up giant buildings left and right on South Campus.
Might I add, with the most expensive facility being the football facility,
So
coming in at first.
if they put that money into textbooks for students and invested in their students, it'd be more effective.
I agree.
I just wanted to add that open source textbooks, if you go back, I'm not really sure about the other types, but open source textbooks that I've used, they were written by professors. The Cyclone was written by professors here at the University of Maryland. So I'm pretty sure the Maryland University just sponsored them to write it. And if you go back to the history textbook, it was written by professors at the Stanford, I believe. So they were also probably sponsored. And I know as well that the government also supports the creation of open source textbooks, so that's a possibility to where they get their income from.
Gotcha, thanks.
So going to the Affordable Textbook Act, would it be automatically given to people who also get the Pell Grant, or would it be by a case-by-case basis?
I'd like to believe that it is given alongside the Pell Grant. I'm not really sure the specific intricacies of the bill since I'm not in the House of Representatives, but I believe it's also like similar to the Pell Grant in that they look at your financial status and they decide how much money they give you for the textbook.
I had a question, going back to something that you mentioned that, I think it's possible that the university, sort of gave grants to the writers, for that psych textbook, but then sometimes, like the government will do something like that. Do you think it would be better, for the funding to come from the government or from universities?
I think it's better to come from the government. I mean, they are known for like spending ludicrous amounts of money and mismanaging it. Like I'm pretty sure like billions of dollars get mismanaged or quote unquote lost in like government spending. So if their finances can get better managed, maybe some of that money can go into the grants going to the open source textbooks and that will support the authors. So I think the government like giving grants would be a better option than just the university.
Well done, guys.
Lots of questions, we got 2 more minutes left over. Do you guys think this is an issue that affects all departments and majors on campus equally, or do you think that this is a specific issue for only a couple of programs?
I actually think that this is a bigger problem for humanities classes where they're reading through historical documents, and maybe that adds to the way each class is graded in that way. Because I can speak for myself, I'm in engineering, and a lot of the textbooks that are needed actually don't turn out to be used in class in favor of an online textbook that covers multiple classes. That's my experience.
Yeah, and kind of going off of him, I'm also an engineering major, and I would say out of the text, like I'm taking Calc 1 right now, and I have not opened the textbook a single time. And I'd say the biggest use for it is practice problems, because it's very difficult to learn math from writing. But if the teacher's going through it, the class is a lot more effective, and the teacher already provides practice problems. So I think the engineering department, there isn't much of a use for textbooks that I've noticed.
I guess following up that question, are there certain departments where textbooks just tend to cost a lot more than others for, I don't know, for seemingly arbitrary reasons or anything like that, you know?
Yeah, well, the calculus textbook they try to get me to buy this semester is $99, and I think that's a ridiculous price to offer for a textbook. And it's also an online textbook, which is, I don't understand where, like, if it's a hard copy, I get it, like it costs to print it, it costs to like get it to me, but if it's an online copy, I don't know where the $99 is really gonna go, so I'm kind of,
Yeah, you would think that it would be less expensive to buy the ebooks, but actually sometimes they surprise you and they say that no, this is going to be more expensive than an actual hardcover copy.
Okay, good job, guys. Okay, so this concludes all of our in-class presentations. Really great job throughout the semester. Great work. Our last class will be on Monday,